And I think this goes. Let's talk about differentiation in live service here because I think Marvel Rivals is a very interesting one. I called Marvel Rivals wrong.
So did I. So did I.
I pride myself, and I usually can call them, but man, when I miss, do I miss? Yeah, I didn't think Hearthstone was going to be good either. So you can score that for score that L. Um, but interestingly, like Marvel Rivals is one of the least differentiated successes that's come out in a long time. If we look,
Yeah.
and let's talk about this versus Spectre Divide. Let's talk about Marvel Rivals versus Spectre Divide for a good example of what differentiation does and doesn't mean. Spectre Divide, clear hook, easily marketable differentiator. You can switch between these guys. It's actually different. It actually is a thing you can't do in other games, but doesn't address needs of tactical, military, team, or solo shooter players in a way that is at least discernible by me. Maybe it does, and if there's some other problems, I can't reverse engineer the need state there. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
Marvel Rivals, you're like, but Overwatch, but better, but that was already a pretty successful game. Let's take a look, because I think that one's the most interesting. Um, Overwatch was already a little bit it had undermet needs within its
Hmm.
community that there weren't healthy alternatives for people who wanted that style of shooter, like very character forward, a lot, shooter with a lowercase s maybe is the right way to put it. It's a lot less a shooter and more of a character game from a shooter
Yep.
perspective with some shooting
Yep.
mechanics. But I think the game was highly repetitive. There was a lot of interdependence between team roles of that kind of classic Blizzard Holy Trinity design, being really interlocked to where you kind of have a job and you need to do your job. And
Hmm.
as the mastery loop increased and people understood what those expectations were, the ability to express, show agency, do interesting things, or have creative or even high agency play outcomes really did reduce down, right? And we saw this with that was really on display for the world to see in Overwatch League. So we
Yeah.
all got to watch that journey, and I think it's subtle, it feels subtle, but all those small muscles of parts of why does this game feel like I can't do anything cool or agency or don't have the agency to do anything exciting in this game was an undermet need that was bubbling and boiling, and that's where I think a lot of the dissatisfaction with late stage Overwatch comes from. I think
Yeah.
you hear the Reddit thread version of it is, man, Overwatch used to be good when it came out, now it sucks. It's like, actually no, Overwatch is objectively better now than it was then, but we had
Right.
more fun with it then because we didn't know the limitations. We didn't know.
Yeah.
We were all trying to do those agency things. We were all trying to pop off, get creative with our comps, show you cool tech with the characters, and express some way of playing and showing agency in this game. But as the game's mastery curve increased, we saw, what is effective and not
Yeah.
kind of curve.
The meta
The
develops.
meta develops, and
And
that's
then
going to happen
if
in
you don't play the meta, you get yelled at.
and that'll happen in any game.
Yep.
What did Rivals do? It's going to get a meta. It has all this stuff. It said, what if actually all that dope shit you want to do? What if all of our characters are just insanity mode? what
Yeah.
if doing the
Yep.
job instead of sitting there with Mercy being a healer is like you're actually doing this crazy high agency stuff all the time just to play? And I think that differentiation, if you look at a feature list and a hero list and a mechanics list and a brand guide, none of this exposes, right?
Yeah.
But it's in
Yeah.
the design language and in the play experience that this stuff becomes clear. And again, I think a lot of us discounted it because it wasn't obvious. You're like, okay, it's Overwatch, but Marvel, okay, cool. I guess I can be Spider-Man. That's neat. And then you play it and you go, oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's the feeling I've been wanting from this other game that I've been tired of for 4 years, and I couldn't put my finger on it until I felt it. To design for
Yep.
that intentionally is very difficult. So huge kudos to the development team of Marvel Rivals. I would put money on there's no way they accidentally got to that. There's no way as
Mm-hmm.
consistent as it is and as well done as it is in the gameplay that that's on accident. If it is the
Yeah.
biggest, that is a bigger coincidence than getting struck by lightning to me. That stuff doesn't happen on that level of
What
accident.
as you're talking through that, it's this is I don't know, maybe this is too niche an example, but Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 came out And so Battlefield 1
Yeah.
was based in World War One. Battlefield 5 was based in World War Two. A lot of the Battlefield games had come from historical conflicts. I still think Battlefield 1 is just an astonishing. Like I think it's the best Battlefield game of the recent era. Going all the way back to like 1942, I don't think they've done. I guess Bad Company was pretty.
Yeah, I will not hear Bad Company slander in this podcast, Ben.
Fair enough. But Battlefield 1 did this thing that was really cool, which is it put you in and it felt so epic. And no matter what class you picked, you felt overpowered.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember playing Battlefield, and if you got in a vehicle, you felt overpowered. It was just like you constantly felt overpowered. And it wasn't because because if everybody's overpowered, no one is, but it felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
And the music and the way everything looked. And I played support, and my brother played sniper, and I would just be like dropping boxes, and he'd be flaring everything. And there'd be times where he'd just say target rich, and I would turn and just start like mowing down lines of enemies. And you'd realize like those aren't NPCs. These are actually other players that are out there. Like they're trying to attack, and we're holding them off. And you felt really powerful. Then I got into Battlefield 5. And what's interesting is even though it's a Battlefield game, and honestly, I think as successful as Battlefield 1 across several measures, it was a different need that was being filled. Because whenever I played Battlefield 5, I felt like I was always weak, and everybody was always weak. And so I was trying to like figure out how weak I was, I could get things done. And if you got in a tank in Battlefield 5, if you felt like very delicate and fragile, whereas in Battlefield 1, you were just like, I am a tank, like you can't kill me. You have to organize to kill me well. And it was just this subtle difference. But for me, for whatever reason, in that context, I so preferred Battlefield 1 over Battlefield 5. And as you were describing that difference between Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, that to me, my brother jumped into Marvel Rivals. He started playing Scarlet Witch. And he was like, holy crap, I don't have to aim. I'm just killing everything. Now, if you go look at tier lists, Scarlet Witch is trash. But he jumped into it and had a really good time.
Right, and I think that right there is there's a bunch of things. Overwatch had done a lot of those things well too. You can come in and have no aim characters and feel great, and so they capitalized on every advantage of the predecessor too, and really didn't give. I think this is the thing. They attacked something that had unmet needs within its environment. Subtle. You have to look for them and you have to understand it. A lot of those guys, a lot of the people who did leadership on that development team had a bunch of Blizzard dudes. Wonder how they would have known how to reverse engineer the gameplay needs and the problems there.
Yeah.
Who could know? And then capitalize on those needs and hyper focus on meeting those needs. So even that, there's no differentiation there. But we're talking about when you're conquering an incumbent, the lowest common denominator is player needs. If you are not talking about the player needs, service and under service, and what their optionality is, I think you are setting yourself up for a roll of the dice bet. If you are doing it and you have an intentional, active, achievable plan, and you know what the strengths and weaknesses of what you're going to do versus the weaknesses of the competition, you have a much higher chance of success in this market. I'm going to point, this is going to sound selfish, only because I worked on it, which is Valorant. Valorant is like, it's a successful game. Riot's doing very well with Valorant, which is awesome. And, it's so based on Counter-Strike from so many angles, right?
Yep.
Why, again, what's the differentiation? And I think a lot of people like to boil this down, and this matters to, it's Counter-Strike with heroes. It's,
that's the simplest, that's the simple view.
And that's, I like to say true but incorrect, because you're like, yes, that's part, but again, why did heroes matter, and what was the underservice that was being attacked? And I think if you worked on this team, a little inside baseball, there was a hyper focus on the underservice of Counter-Strike on that team. Everybody, like that team was obsessed. We had deep, 1,000 hour Counter-Strike players, former pros, some of the most enthusiasts you could have about that title, and being like, to the level of depth we can talk about where this thing has cracks in the armor, this 16-year-old, or whatever it is, probably 20, this unassailable behemoth of the industry, nobody will ever take anything from Counter-Strike, and going, we're going to go attack that, and you look at it, and it's just this giant made of steel, right? And somebody walks over, and you all look at it, and you sit there, and we're like, there's all the weak points in the armor. Everybody line up and shoot at those points only.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it works. It's not. It's the best game you've ever seen. It's good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the highest visual fidelity you've ever met with the most features and the best and most heroes and the coolest thing. It's like it's good and it met it met needs for like being an awesome game in that era. But what it really did is it attacked underserviced needs and said, if you play this game and you're tired of these things, we're fixing it. If you don't play
Yeah.
these games because they have a bunch of irritating shit that bothers you, but we think you should, here's why you should play ours. That's what heroes really do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Valorant is a market position game. It is not just a game that is cool. Probably started as
Yeah.
that at some point, but I think even
Yeah.
if you say it started as that, it started with that with an intuitive knowledge of what hadn't been said out loud yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. I remember being like engaging in some of those conversations about what are the things we don't touch and what are the things that we can touch. And like you said, finding those weak points and going like, that's where we win. If you lead teams in game or software development and you're tired of wasteful and unreliable estimation, I've built an online course just for you. It's called Advanced Estimation for Game and Software Development, and it's a self-paced course with over 15 hours of content, real-world examples, and tools you can start using right away. Estimation doesn't have to be a morale-draining mess. Planning doesn't have to feel unrealistic and contrived. You can do better, and this course will help. Early access is now open with lifetime access and a big launch discount, but there's limited seats at this price point. Check it out at this URL or in the show notes below.